Hallo liebe Hub-Community, schön, dass ihr heute dabei seid bei unserem Livestream. Wir werden euch heute zu zweit durch den Abend führen. Mein Name ist Janina Lehr, ich bin Projektmanagerin im ruhrHUB.
Und mein Name ist Paula Brandt, ich bin ebenfalls Projektmanagerin im ruhrHUB.
In Kürze startet unser Livestream, aber vorher möchten wir euch natürlich trotzdem noch mal ganz kurz den ruhrHUB und unsere Events und Services vorstellen. Also bleibt dran. Wir sind der digitale Knotenpunkt für Unternehmen und Startups sowie alle relevanten Player der Startup-Szene im Ruhrgebiet und möchten euch miteinander verknüpfen.
Das machen wir mit unseren Ruhr-Events. Eines davon kennt ihr auf jeden Fall schon, weil ihr heute bei diesem Livestream dabei seid. Es geht um unsere Meetups, unsere Startup-Breakfasts, unsere Startup-Nights oder auch Meet the Founder.
Genau. Und jetzt im September steht eins unserer Groß-Events an, nämlich die Ruhr Startup Week, bei der wir mit Unternehmen, Initiativen und vielen weiteren Partnern über 70 On- und Offline-Events im gesamten Ruhrgebiet für euch veranstalten. Also schaut euch das unbedingt an.
Weiter geht's im Oktober. Am 27. und 28. Oktober findet der Ruhr-Summit in der digitalen Jahrhunderthalle in Bochum statt. Wir sind mittlerweile die größte B2B-Startup-Konferenz in Deutschland und möchten mit unserer digitalen Plattform in diesem Jahr nicht nur europäische, sondern auch internationale Startup-Hotspots ansprechen. Also seid auf jeden Fall dabei, es lohnt sich, es wird richtig groß und wenn ihr euch Tickets holen möchtet, dann geht einfach auf www.ruhrsummit.de.
Genau, und wenn ihr jetzt schon richtig Lust habt, dann wollen wir das Ganze natürlich noch verstärken und deswegen seht ihr jetzt den Trailer. Danach geht es los mit unserem Meetup. Viel Spaß! Nee, externes Mikro ist das hier. Das muss sein. Ja, hallo, herzlich willkommen. Schön, dass ihr dabei seid beim Livestream. Ich bin Janina, ihr habt uns ja gerade schon mitbekommen, die Paula ist auch hier. Wir sind die beiden Projektmanagerinnen und haben das Meetup heute organisiert. Wir freuen uns sehr, dass ihr vor Ort seid, dass ihr live dabei seid und ich werde jetzt einfach auf Englisch switchen, da das Meetup ja auch auf Englisch stattfindet. Genau, wenn ihr Fragen habt, nutzt den Van Retro-Chat oder den Live-Chat bei YouTube. Wir übersetzen euch dort auch gerne alles, wenn es irgendwelche Fragen gibt. Also erstmal, I'm very happy to welcome you here, our speaker, Fatemeh. And she was born in Iran and studied information technology there, then came to Germany to do her master's program here, which is, by the way, amazing. And you've done it in Aachen, which is a great university as well. And then you worked during your studies in several large companies as a data scientist, AI researcher, and data analyst. And so this gave you like a deep insight into communication barriers, motivation problems and stuff with employees, which is kind of the reason why you had the idea to start your company, your startup, which is called ComeMit. And it's a great platform for employee engagement, and if you want to know more about it, you can just look it up. There's a link in the description of the YouTube channel. But I think before I tell you anything more, she can do it much better than I do. So we're very excited to have you here, and I'll just give the microphone to you.
So thanks, Janina, for the nice introduction, and hello, everyone. As you know now, my name is Fatemeh, and I'm founder and CEO at ComeMit. And I have also prepared a short introduction about my background. As you know, I originally come from Iran, and as you can also understand from the first image, that's little girl is making tea because Iranian people are famous for having some specialty for their guests. But the other picture is the founder and CEO at ComeMit now. Generally, she drinks coffee because founding your own startup need to be a little awake more than normal people. So now it's about 2.5 years that I'm working on my own startup, ComeMit. And ComeMit is a people analytic platform that help managers to have better interaction with their employees. And we generally have a big vision of making workplaces a great place to work, that every employee and employer could have real-time communication with each other. At the moment, I also teach at Ayubaha University, the Batonov University. I teach also IT management there. And I am also the AI and HR analytic consultant in different international companies in England, in my home country, Iran, and also in Germany. During my study, I have worked in Gezi's Institute in data science and also in Deutsche Musikrat as a server administrator. And before I came to Germany, I also worked as data analyst in Karafarin Bank, one of the famous private banks in Iran. So, we believe that future of HR is people-centric analytics. But what do we mean by people-centric analytics? Most of the time, when we speak about people analytics, some HR managers claim that human resource management is about having a real-time interaction with people. We cannot use technology, we cannot use automation, because we are making human-based decisions. And for making human-based decisions, we need to have manual management on our process. But the idea of using technology in human resource management is empowering human resource managers to being a promising department and being a business partner to making big decisions about the people. So the idea is using data to making people-centric decisions inside the organization. And for becoming people-centric analytics, we should use different kind of data-driven method. Or generally to say, we should be data-driven by gathering enough data about our people, about our processes, and about our interaction inside the organization. Because without data, we are just another person with another opinion. If we want to have a concrete, a strong decision-making process, we should empower it with the power of data inside our organization. Because just claiming that I am, as a HR manager, working on the power of my experiences doesn't really work well in today's organization and for today's employees. Because most of the time, today's employees are tech savvies, they are having interaction with the newest technology, and you as the HR manager should also automate most of your processes in human resource to empower your decision-making process. But how is the process of moving from traditional HR to modern HR? For moving from traditional HR to moving HR, at first, we should define the traditional HR process inside the organization. Most of the time, old HR managers and traditional HR managers believe that they would define their processes and they would make decisions based on how they have done it before, based on their own experiences inside the organization. Sometimes that works, most of the time it doesn't work. Because when we just want to make decisions based on our own experiences, we cannot predict the future. And most of the time, using best practices from the other companies, from the similar industry, doesn't work in our case because we have our own culture, we have our own employees, we have our own business processes. So how can we copy the others' best practices to solve our own problem? The other belief that traditional HR managers have is that they should stay busy with their manual controlment and management of their process and their people, because human resource management is about having real-time communication and collaboration with employees at the moment. But they are not somehow aware that technology enhances many processes inside the organization. And the other belief that old human resource management department have is that most of the time they are searching for new talents, they are searching for new employees, because always they want to find a better employee with higher productivity, with higher engagement, and with higher motivation. But instead, they can use the power of current employees by using talent management strategy and by increasing the current employees' productivity inside the organization. So these are the three beliefs that traditional HR managers have in their traditional HR process. But how can we move from traditional HR to the modern HR-driven? The first step of moving from your own thoughts towards real facts and insights. When you just make decisions about your own thoughts and opinions, you cannot really claim that these facts and these decisions are based on a powerful data background. For example, you have understand that the attrition rate of the employees in this quarter has increased rapidly. It's just your own thoughts and it's just your own opinion. If you want to use a little data, you can also claim that the attrition rate of the employees in this quarter is 30%. Now it's a fact. You have some information about it, and you can say that by using some metrics and by using different comparison between the attrition rate of the previous quarter and this quarter, the attrition rate in this quarter has increased 20%. So now you have a matrix. By using analytics, you can find the reason of this attrition rate. You can find the problem. For example, you apply different analytics on your data and you understand that your employees are not happy because of the new team leader inside the organization. So this is the power of analytics that can help you to understand the problem. And then if you want to be a really data-driven HR manager, you can apply some predictive and prescriptive analytics, and then you can claim that with the high probability, I have found the solution from the data. I have understood that if we find a good coach for our new team leader, if we train him or her, he can improve his leadership skills and the employees would feel more engaged and happier. This is the solution that is provided by using predictive and prescriptive analytics on your HR dataset. So the first step was moving from our own thoughts and opinions towards real facts and insights that are possible from using your HR dataset. Because by providing just simple HR report, you just have a kind of simple photograph from one side of the building. When you have a single photograph from one side of the building, how you can claim that you can explain this building in details? You cannot definitely claim that because you just have one side photograph. So you would use analysis instead of reporting in the modern data-driven HR because you want to explain the problem and then find the most possible solution for this problem. One of the interesting methods that you can apply as an HR manager on your dataset is KDA, or the K-driver analysis. KDA is a statistical analytic method that you can apply on your HR dataset, and you can find the most effective things that affect your employees' attrition, for example, or engagement. Because when you run an employee survey, you would understand that your people are not happy because of their income, because of the new team leader, because of their colleagues, because of having not enough employees perk. Okay, but you don't have enough budget and time. How can you define which one is the most important and effective factor in reducing the employees' attrition and increasing their retention and engagement? KDA will help you to find the priorities among your dataset. By applying the KDA, you can find which factors have the most important effect to engaging, for example, or retaining the employees. The next step of moving from traditional HR to modern data-driven HR is moving from what you know towards what you don't know that you don't know. At first, it sounds a little funny because most of the time we claim that we know everything, or we don't know something, then we will search for it. But the interesting point is that there is also a third group that speaks about the unknown, hidden information inside your organization. Things that you know, yes, for example, you know that you have an interesting, cool company culture. All the millennials come to your company to work for you because you have a nice coffee machine, you have a nice employee perk. These are the things that you know and you are proud of. But there are also some things that you know that you don't know. For example, you don't know that why the employees in IT department are leaving rapidly in this quarter. You know that they are leaving, but you don't know about the reason of this attrition rate. So these are the things you know, and you know that you don't know, and you are searching for the reason. You are asking other HR people, you are using a coaching program to find the best possible solution for these problems. But the third group are those things that you don't know that you don't know. For example, you don't know that there is a toxic employees in one of your IT department, and most of the employees around this employee don't feel good, don't feel secure in working with him, and they don't want to share their feedback because they don't want to be that bad person that wants to just destroy the other colleagues. So by applying analytics, by using segmentation and finding the connections between different segments on your data, you can find a clue. You can find that, okay, there is a real problem inside the IT department that people are leaving now. So we should find a solution for this hidden unknown problem. By your HR reporting, you cannot never understand about this hidden problem because the simple HR report just shows a simple view of your current data set. Without applying segmentation and without finding correlation among different segmentation, you cannot find the hidden connections between your different data points. If you are not familiar with the definition of segments, segments are a group of people, for example, in your company who have the same characteristics or they have the same features in your data set. For example, the normal segmentation are the segment of employees who are older than 30 years old, or those employees who are international, they are not from Germany, or those employees who have more experience, for example, they have more than 5 years experience. These are the normal segmentation that you can find from your dataset. But sometimes you can also find very interesting but hidden segmentation from your database. For example, you can find the segmentation of those employees who had connections or a shared project with that toxic employees in the past, and most of them are now leaving. You can find a clue from this segment that maybe one of the reasons of attrition rate for my IT department would be this common or this shared project among two groups of employees in my two segments that I have created. So one of the benefits of using analytics and then applying segmentation on your dataset would finding these hidden connections and hidden correlations among your data. And the third step of moving from traditional HR to modern HR is moving from a known problem to finding the unknown solutions. Most of the time, you know that, for example, the attraction of new people is really time-consuming and difficult. Sometimes you know that your onboarding process is not really interesting because after 6 months, the new employees still need training, still are not familiar with the company's routines and tasks and projects. And you know that something is wrong in your onboarding process. Sometimes you know that your engagement and retention strategy is not really work well, but you are not familiar with the best customized solution in this situation. One of the really interesting examples in this situation was a hospital, a children's hospital. And they have understood that the attrition rate of the new nurses was more than usual. For example, they have the average attrition rate of 10%, but in the previous year, they understood that the new nurses are leaving more than usual. The attrition rate was 25%. And this 25% was really a high rate for new nurses because they have spent a lot for finding those nurses. They have spent a lot for onboarding and training of those nurses, and just 1 out of 4 of those nurses leave the company after 1 year. Of course, it's not fair because the hospital has spent a lot to finding, training, and onboarding those nurses, and just they left after 1 year. So for the good reason, they started to search for the solution among their data set. They started to find different patterns. Why the nurses are leaving? Why the new nurses are leaving? And after a while, after applying different HR analytics algorithm, they have understood that those nurses who have left recently didn't have enough experience in working in children's hospital. That means most of those nurses who left after 1 year were inexperienced on or just have less than 2 years experience in working in the hospital. So they were not ready for having or working in emergency situation. They were not ready to working with children patients. They just didn't stand the situation and left the hospital. So for the solution, they started to hire more experienced nurses. Although they have to pay more to those experienced nurses, although they have to provide better employees perk, but at the end they have understood that the employee lifetime value or ELTV for the experienced nurses was much more higher than inexperienced nurses. That means the estimated financial value that those experienced employees was provided for the hospital was much more higher than the financial value that inexperienced nurses provided for the hospital. So ELTV is also one of very interesting and useful HR measurement that you can use when you want to attract a new employees and when you want to provide the onboarding process and training process. You should consider that how much value does this new employee provide for my company, for example, after 2 years. By having this calculation in mind, or by providing this calculation for each of your employees, you can provide better decisions for your decision maker, and you can tell them how much they should invest in finding and hiring new employees in place. Because sometimes it's not really worth to hire a new employee, and after 2 years the employee will leave. And what about the value that we have expected to receive from that new employee? ELTV can help us to calculate this value for each employee. So, if we want to move our traditional HR process to the modern data-driven process, we should try to use data in these 3 main employee journey periods. That means in attraction, activation, and iteration. We can gather enough amount of data, apply analytics algorithm on these data, and find the optimal employee journey. Because we want to create value from our employees, they also want to create value for themselves, because they are spending their time, they are spending half of their day in their work. So employer and employee, both of them, need to see the value in their daily work. So the modern data-driven HR manager would gather data from all the process in attraction, activation, iteration, and then make more powerful people-centric decisions around the people inside the organization. Because what has happened in the past is not a guarantee of the future. We never thought that Corona will come and we should change all our processes. We never thought that we should stay at home for 4 months to work as home office, for example, and sometimes we didn't really expect to have new changes in the market, to have new changes in our organization culture. But if we have something powerful, that means if we have something like the power of data, we can somehow predict the future changes. We can somehow claim that we are ready for some new situations. We have enough investment, we have enough technology, so we can make ready for all the future changes in the market and also in our company's culture. And what we do in our people analytics platform ComeMit is exactly the same. We help managers and HR managers to change their process from traditional HR to the modern data-driven HR. We exactly use the company's data in different processes, from attraction, then activation, then iteration. We also have different kind of employee survey. We combine this data and then provide different people analytic decisions for the HR managers. Because we believe that solving the communication problem at the workplace is the most important issue at the current organization. And it's my contact information. It's my private email. You can send me email if you have any question. And I would be happy to invite you for a patient tea if you want. And we can talk more about all the features and all the questions you have about our application. Thank you.
I don't think we need to do a break. Okay, so just gonna come here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So first of all, I'd like to take some questions from the audience if you have any. Would you like to ask her something? Yes? Okay. Can I give you the microphone? So.
You talked about the power of AI and how data science can help managers to make decisions. But I was wondering, where do you see the difference between, classical statistical analysis, such as correlations, regressions, ANOVAs, and so on, and AI? So do you use really the power of AI, and how do you do it, rather than simply, look for correlations or any differences in the data itself?
As you said, most of the time in analytics, the first step is statistical analytics. We have different HR reports. We provide different nice visualization about the current situation. But all of these nice trends and situations are about the current situation. In the next step, we would use different predictive algorithms to speak about the future. Somehow help manager to predict the attrition rate of each employee. Each employee would have a different value or different weights, and based on these weights that we have gathered from employee survey, we can help managers to predict the attrition rate of each employee, and we can define different risks of the attrition for different teams and different departments. So in this way, we are one step further in predictive analytics. After a while, when we have enough data about the organization, if we have enough personalized data, because now we have a large training data set. Based on this data set, we start our process. We use the predictive algorithms, but in the next step, we go one step further to predict the future about the attrition rate, about the required training, and about the required team-making process, which employees are the best fit to work in a team with each other. You're welcome.
So, are there any other questions for you guys? You can, ask questions in German as well. Like, we're happy to translate. Do we got any questions for the live stream? Or not? Okay, so maybe I'm just gonna ask a few questions. So you talked a lot about the different kind of things you have to look out for as HR, right? So you also have to think about people you might not know you have to think about. So that's kind of where AI comes into play. But how do you raise all the data? Like, what's the source of all the data that you use for the tool?
At the first step, HR dataset has a lot of kind of data from the people. For example, their age, their gender, their experience, their nationality. All of the things are important features in our dataset. And as I have mentioned, we have also a training dataset. It's about those employees who have left the company after, for example, 2 years. How was their features? Why did they leave? What was the reason of their attrition? And then we combine these data. We use also monthly or weekly survey. We gather new data, and we start from these basic learning data set, and then go step by step to making the process more personalized based on the real company's data set. So we use different kind of data sets from company, from our own survey, and from the learning data set that we have.
Okay, so maybe you can just talk us through, if you talk to a company and you're trying to tell them about your software, and we say, yes, let's do it. What are the first steps? How do you do it? How do you teach the HR management to actually use the software right? Because I think that's kind of like a difficult point as well, right?
You mean about the application?
Yes.
Actually, applications don't have any complicated things, because they just import the email address of the employees, and then if they want to use their own data set, because we don't have access to their own data set, so they can just import their own data set in our platform, and it doesn't need any special learning and training. But we also provide different consultancy to the HR managers who want to do it themselves, who want to learn the science, who want to learn the data analytic knowledge to do it themselves instead of using a third-party application like us. We also provide training. We tell them how they can do it simply with Python or with Excel in the simplest form. But for our application, we don't need any special training because it's provided an easy, simple user interface.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess I don't have to ask for which companies because I think basically every company could use an HR tool like that. So we've talked a lot about HR tools in general, and we want to talk about HR trends in 2020. So do you have any other, I don't know, recommendations for people in HR management, what they should look out for, and what's important? Maybe another technology you can recommend that's kind of something that works with your technology as well.
Yes, that's true. The most important thing is that I have seen in our interview with different HR managers or in our consultancy, we have seen that most of the time HR managers don't look at the data as an important asset. They don't gather enough data because they think that it's not really valuable. But we look at the data as one of the most important and valuable things inside the organization. Because by using the current data, we can predict the future trends. The most important thing is that look at the data as an important asset for predicting the future of your organization and business. And the other thing that we always consider is, do your team really feel the same as you do as the HR manager? Because most of the time, we think that, yes, everything is fine, our people are happy because they are working. But after 2 years, the company really see the bad effect of lack of communication, lack of enough real-time feedback and collaboration culture. So having enough real-time communication and look at the data as one of the most valuable assets of the organization is really important.
Do you maybe have some recommendations how you can improve real-time communication, maybe some tools that you can recommend from your past experiences, so there's like a communication basis for HR and the people involved?
Actually, I am more from the tech area.
Yeah,
I have studied informatics, I worked in data science. I can help HR managers to tell them what to do with the data, which data is important, what are the best database or data resources in your organization. But as a real-time communication, what we do in our platform, we have a customization. We have 5 questions weekly to ask from the employees. Then HR can find the real mood of the employees, the real atmosphere or the real satisfaction. And then we have also this monthly employee survey and combine these 2 short and long-term survey with each other. So we can somehow say that, okay, our people's mood and our people's engagement are changing, the trends are changing. It's somehow a real-time trends about the people's mood and culture, I can say.
Awesome. That sounds really cool. Okay, so any more questions? Otherwise, I'd say we know everything there is to know. Yes. Okay.
If I understood right, according to your data sets, they're all measured in quantities, right? Maybe this is not the right question for a data scientist again, but would you think that measuring qualitative data would be useful too? I mean, it would be a lot of work to do it because you would have to interview employees after possibly or after they leave the company, and I don't think that this is really possible, but do you think it would be useful and enrich the data set that you have afterwards?
If you're speaking about those employees who are leaving the company, there's something like exit survey that okay. In exit survey, we asked the employees why they are leaving, what was the reason of their attrition, and how we could improve the situation, what would we prepare if they wanted to stay. These questions can help us or HR managers to understand the reason or maybe the reason of the attrition rate. But to be honest, most of the time, employees, when they want to leave, they just want to leave. So they wouldn't say that I was dissatisfied because of that team leader told me that this project should. They just leave. But by gathering the trends, by gathering the data, we can step by step learn from the historical data which kind of employees leave, which kind of employees has left, and which kind of employee will leave in future. We can just make this prediction step by step more accurate by gathering this exit survey from the employees.
Great, I think that's it so far. Thank you so much for being here and like telling us so much about your very, very interesting HR technology. I think that's very important. I think everybody could profit from that. And well, if you have any questions, you can just check out the email, or I'm sure they can, send you an invitation on LinkedIn or wherever. And yes, you can also contact us as well if you need some contact information. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Do you want to answer 2 more questions that came from the YouTube chat? I just see. Okay, we can try to just solve them. How do you measure attraction, activation, and attrition?
At first, we should explain what do we mean by attraction, activation, and attrition. By attraction, we mean that how much do we invest to find a new employees for onboarding and training. And for attrition, we are speaking about how much this employee has provided value for our company. So we cannot say that we would calculate attraction, and activation, but we mean that we should gather data to understand how much value we are investing to finding the employees, to training them, and making them enough productive, because as you may know, a new employee takes about 2 years to become productive and to create value. So we should calculate this employee lifetime value to understand that does it really worth to hire a new employee for this position, or I can just use another employee in another project, train them, and then ask them to also join this new project. It's about calculating value at the end.
We have actually 2 more questions.
Okay.
Kind of
But it's working, the camera is...
yeah, it's working. It's all working. Okay, so there's another question. We should talk into the microphone. Will you do it?
Yes, of course. So the second question for the audience is, would your program give the companies advice or not? Like, is it part of your service to give advice? And Philo?
We actually don't know.
If they mean about the recommendation, we also give, after doing the survey, we also provide the employee roadmap. How managers should have better interaction with the employees to retain them and to engage them. We also have different kind of recommendations because we have a talent manager and HR managers, and based on the data we gather from the employees' problem, we also create a recommendation and employees engagement roadmap inside the organization.
One last question, and feel free to not answer that if you want to. How many customers do you have with ComeMit, like your startup?
Maybe how many companies have you helped? Maybe
How many companies?
Can you give like an example of how you helped one of the companies?
I can say that the newest company that will join us in end of August, and from end of August, the most interesting things that we want to solve is about the manager engagement problem, because the main decision maker has understood that the managers themselves don't feel enough engaged. So the main issues in that company is not employee engagement, but the manager engagement. And it's very interesting use case for us, because till now we have worked with different companies in employee engagement and employee engagement survey. But now we are providing a leadership roadmap, how to engage your managers. And I think it would be interesting also for us, because we are believing that if the managers themselves don't feel engaged, they cannot engage their employees. So if I want to speak about the recent customers who joined us from end of August, would be that German companies who want to use our tool for the manager engagement.
I Okay, so no more questions, no more surprise questions. Thank you and have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.